Welcome to Growth TV. I'm Carolyn Vallejo. 3D printing in the aerospace and defense sector has taken off, with experts predicting rapid growth in coming years. Today, Ranjith Rajendran, the managing director of the U.S. private equity practice at TBM Consulting Group, joins us to discuss the ways 3D printing is changing manufacturing, affecting the supply chain, and impacting M&A in the sector. Ranjith, welcome to Growth TV.
Thank you for having me. We're happy to share our insights on this topic.
First, let's talk about the current state of adoption of 3D printing within the aerospace and defense sector.
Well, it started with concept prototypes, and it continues to be leveraged significantly across multiple businesses, particularly within aerospace, the low volume complex parts and trying to get it faster helps with the 3D printing. In the absence of 3D printing, the long lead time is a challenge. Anytime engineers are looking at testing prototypes and going through that iterative design process, the 3D printing has become very valuable. It started there. Then there is a adaptation towards using it for a low volume engineered grade thermoplastics being used. So that's the next evolution, which helped a lot of situations for particularly the supply chain in getting parts which could be utilized for different clients. When we look at the follow-up, there was a improvement in different printing and the type of materials could be used. So that accelerated some additional areas where they can create some detailed prototypes which could be used for flow areas such as duct. And it also helped them to create those complex details. And basically, instead of just relying on 3D for design review, now they have the parts to review with their customers, to review with the design team. And it also evolved into making tools such as investment casting parts. So the growth has been significant in the last few years, particularly with the advancement in the printers. But I also do believe that it helped particularly during the post-COVID supply chain challenges. So that also accelerated some of these adaptation of 3D printed parts, both for end use, but also during product development.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the supply chain. The aerospace and defense industry, like so many other industries, have been facing supply chain bottlenecks and other challenges in recent years. How does 3D printing affect the supply chain pressures that are still troubling the industry of aerospace and defense?
I think traditionally, aerospace relied on local suppliers who are producing low volume, high mix parts. So which comes with, and on top of it, it's also qualified suppliers are needed. You can't just take a part and start using it. It still need to be tested, validated, and certified. So which means like there is a broad group of suppliers they relied on. Now, when the COVID hit, people are not on site. It significantly impacted the timing it takes to get those parts. Those who had capabilities within 3D printing or who had suppliers with the 3D printing capabilities were able to easily get parts in a faster way, but it also helped them to adapt to a new technology faster. So to an extent, I think the COVID supply chain impact did accelerate the adaptation to 3D parts. And it also allowed engineers to get comfortable with testing parts which are coming out of the traditional manufacturing, but also 3D manufacturing at the same time, so they can qualify both parts. So that's where I think the strength with the 3D printing is the lead time. They don't need to make a new tool. It can go directly from a 3D drawing into the printer. Where they do still see challenges are the post-processing, and you can't produce at the same rate as a traditional manufacturing. But it definitely has helped both the supply chain leaders, but also it helped the industry overall with the adaptation of the 3D printed parts.
3D printing technology is evolving, as you just mentioned, and adoption is on the rise. How do you see demand for 3D printing impacting M&A activity in the aerospace and defense sector in 2024 and beyond?
Well, we have seen back in 2021, there are a lot of small 3D printing businesses which had a niche market or a local customers able to start consolidating because they saw the need for um, getting opportunity to serve customers across the country. So that helped them to consolidate. But it also brought the question of what is the right mix? Can you just go all 3D printing? The answer is no, because it does require capabilities to support traditional manufacturing. Then the traditional manufacturers have the same questions. Do I go and invest in 3D printing? 3D printing is a capital intensive process. Particularly if you're looking at industrial grade printers, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of investment. So what we are seeing more and more is those who have already 3D printing capabilities, they have already invested that capital, but their utilization is pretty low because they don't have the customer base to expand. The same way, the traditional manufacturers are having strong customer base and relationship, but they do not have that capability to leverage 3D printing. So we have started seeing those with a strong customer base acquiring some of the 3D printing companies. Same way with the 3D printing companies which are consolidated, start looking at those with the customer base. So it can be a win-win, but it's like who takes the first lead. So that's what happened. And then there is a little bit of a lull because there was a question on what is the real growth? Because we have seen that repeatedly, some companies were expecting tremendous growth, but there was no proof. There is no market study. So that slowed down a little bit of that. But I would see the next year being coming with a lot more interest among these companies to continue to look at merger and acquisition. The two reasons why I do believe that it's going to see more is cost of capital. There is very little incentive for somebody to go and spend new capital when there is underutilized capital assets exist in the industry. So that's one. The second area is also the supplier or the end user is looking for a better service. When I say better service, they're looking at serving with a low lead time, but not increasing the cost. So that creates an opportunity for merger and acquisition, both in terms of traditional manufacturers working with 3D manufacturing. So that will be a significant opportunity. There's one other element where I do believe it's going to have a significant impact is metal printing has evolved significantly in the last few years. With the advancement in continued technology, I do anticipate there will be breakthrough technological advancements coming in 3D printing will always bring new opportunities for particularly in the space sector. So that's where I do believe that the opportunity is out there for the merger and acquisition continuing to accelerate, particularly for aerospace and defense.
All right. So an evolving space certainly sounds like there's some niches that are developing that could really drive M&A activity. Ranjith, thank you so much for joining Growth TV.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.